Welcome to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
Are we gonna toss around that bottle opener? We gonna start it up? This is a good way to start the episode. Hey,
it didn't slide at all.
It did not slide.
Hey, there's a little grip on it.
Yeah, there's a rubber grip on it.
Is it good?
It's not bad.
Here you go, Steven. Oh,
Ow! My eye!
I'm not good at that anymore.
Let's see if it slides that way. There, that's a little better.
Yeah.
I taste the strawberry.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shiner Strawberry Blonde.
That is really good.
Not a sponsor.
I've been to, it says made with Poteet, Texas strawberries. I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too.
Yep, we have. We've done stuff in Poteet and we've done stuff in Pleasanton, all around that area.
Shout out to Poteet for these strawberries we're drinking.
Man, that's really good.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Wow.
I like a lighter flavor,
Mhm.
you know, one that doesn't sit too heavy on your belly.
I like that dark stuff, man.
Get in my
Do you?
belly.
I don't know how I feel about it specifically in my belly, but I like it in my mouth.
You had a couple years ago in Ruidoso, you had it was like a
Peanut butter one?
peanut butter
Oh,
milk
yeah.
stout.
That was good.
And I tasted it and it was so rich.
It was
too rich.
very.
I had a pecan stout that was really, really good.
I should have tried that.
Dude,
That was
yeah.
good.
We went to there's a pecan stout that's brewed out of Austin, and I forget the brand name, but we went to the Alamo Draft House in Austin, and they had that locally brewed beer, but they made milkshakes with it.
Oh,
So we had a pecan stout
Wish I could do
milkshake.
that.
Golly, it was good.
but you've always liked the milk shaky.
Oh yeah, man.
Drinks like
Colorado Bulldog, man.
Yeah.
That's my drink.
Yep.
We're here just talking about alcohol.
I'm in on this. This Shiner strawberry is good.
Yeah.
I like Shiner in general
Yeah.
because
And it's Texas. We can't not
yeah,
like that.
True.
I did the Shiner sea salt and lime
Mm.
before, remember, and that one's good
I
too.
went to North Carolina years ago with a friend for a disc golf tournament. We went to some bar and grill, and the lady asked, "Can I get you guys something to drink?" And he goes, "Can I get a Shiner?" She goes, "What?" He goes, "Can I get a Shiner?" She said, "I don't know what that is." He was like, "Oh, I forgot. We're not in Texas."
We're not in Texas anymore.
Yeah. Oh man.
How you doing, Pierce?
I am good. Summertime is just flying on by, it seems like. But good, man. What's so interesting about this year, this is the first year in quite a while where we've done youth camp towards the beginning of the summer. And so initially I was kind of stressed out just having to get a bunch of stuff done, because usually I was doing a lot of the admin type side of that, getting all the paperwork in check, make sure all the background checks where they need to be and stuff like that throughout the summer when we had a little bit more freedom and more flexibility in schedule. But I was having to do that a lot more during the school semester leading up to camp. And I thought I wasn't going to like that, but then we were done with youth camp, and I was like, now we can
Still
just
got the summer.
chill with the youth. Like we
Yeah.
can just do other things here in town. We can just do little hangouts and stuff. But like, man, yeah. So even now looking at this week that's coming up, this would usually be the week that we're gone for camp, being the last week of July. And then really when August starts, you're getting ready for school, like back to school stuff. And so I feel like this summer has been a little bit more mentally freeing, which is nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. And just being able to enjoy our group instead of
It
having
seems
to like
some really
worry
cool
about
things
the
are going on. At the
dude.
group.
Yeah, man, a lot more cohesiveness that they're wanting to continue on. I think that every year, I shouldn't say every year for our group, but I think every year in general, there's just the temptation of like the quote unquote camp high of like you get really stoked at camp and then nothing really carries on once you get back home from camp. But what's been great is just seeing our youth's heartbeat to just keep that going. Like we had a couple students step up and they want to start their own Bible study and start talking about more things as a group outside of youth group normally. And I was like, that's super cool to see that they're wanting to bleed that into their everyday life, not just when I go to church or when I go to camp. Like that's actually just who they are now in Christ, which is super cool, super encouraging. And what's crazy is before camp, I remember thinking like, I want that cohesiveness. I want that thing. How can I see that kind of take place? And the Lord just answered that and was like, we'll just do it at camp, which is super cool.
So cool.
Yeah. Y'all doing all right?
Yeah, man, doing well.
Good.
It's school at Cristobal is going to start like a week earlier than it did last year, so I feel like, man, we're just at the, like we've got like 3 weeks left, but it feels like, oh man, it's
Only
just right
3
here.
weeks. Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah,
I'm going to Colorado next week.
That sounds awesome.
dude.
Cannot wait.
We had so much fun in Colorado in June, like so much fun, and I just want to go back.
Someday we'll have a 456 church plant in Colorado
There you go.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to go. You know where I've never been? Colorado.
You've never
Oh,
I've
been.
weird.
never been.
You know
to
what they have in
Colorado.
Colorado? Bulldogs.
Yeah, Colorado Bulldogs, man. It's my people. It's my place, man.
We should make that happen.
I would love to.
Would you
man.
rather go in the winter like to ski, or would you rather go in the summer when you can do outdoors stuff?
I don't know how much I would. I've never been skiing either, so I just don't know how much I would enjoy that.
I'd
but
love to see you ski.
I would fall down. So yeah, I tripped over my phone like 50 times.
I have this like vision of, because I'm sure Hannah grew up skiing.
Ish, yeah. Her
So-
dad doesn't like it too much, but there've been a couple
okay.
times.
Anyways, I had this like, I could see it like you're skiing together, and she's just like standing behind you.
I'm just shaking with my
She's like,
feet pointed
"Pierce,
towards
get
me. Yeah, I know. Just edging my way down the thing. I'll find the one tree out of nowhere and just hit it. Yeah,
I think you would actually enjoy it.
I bet I would once I
I
got.
really think
my
you would
snow
enjoy
legs.
the summer
Yeah,
because you're just out. Like you can just go.
that's what I was thinking. Like you're
wilderness.
never having to worry about. You don't have to worry about weather as much. Not have to worry. Like it's actually pretty outside.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
the
it
desert.
rains a lot and there's bears, but
just different worries. But yeah, just seeing that. I mean, and also, as much as I enjoy the mountains, it's more so of just me realizing that I don't really like because people say there's two different types of people when it comes to like
Beach and
vacation.
mountain
There's
people.
beach and mountain people, and I know I'm not a beach person, so I'm like, well, I gotta be a mountain person,
You must be.
and I love.
I think, dude, we need to figure out if you can come like to the cabin where we stay. It's a wraparound porch where you can just see. You know what I'm talking about? You remember
Mhm.
this? You can just see for miles and miles in
Gosh.
the mountains, and I think you might not ever leave the porch. You would just sit
I
on the
bet I
porch.
wouldn't. I bet, yeah, I'd have my iPad and get a pipe and I'd be having a good time, man. Tobacco pipe, to be clear to everybody, everybody listen.
You're in Colorado, yeah.
I
You gotta
know.
be clear about that.
Gotta be clear. You know what's funny too? I know that there's like psychological practices for mental health regarding like wide open spaces. And we were in Oklahoma recently on my wife's grandparents' property. And it's one of those situations where it's still Oklahoma, so it's still flat, but it's more like hilly
Yeah,
farmland.
There's some really pretty hilly spots. in
And
Oklahoma.
yeah, we were just sitting outside and I looked and I could see for what felt like forever. And it's just these rolling hills with different crops on them and stuff like that. And there was just something to be said about just looking in the distance and just staring out there. And just, I felt this weird peace and calmness. And
it's great.
it was amazing. So I can't even imagine like how much better that would be with actually green,
It's so good.
mountainous forest scenery.
Literally, I could. I'm not even joking. If there was ever a year when I told Cammie like, "Hey, we're just staying, we're not going back to Texas," I don't think she would fight me at all.
That's right. Like, okay, cool. We're settled. That's awesome.
If we could take the culture of Texas,
Yeah.
and put it in Colorado, or if we could just get Colorado back, because at one point I think there was a section of Colorado that was part of Texas.
Mm.
then
Yeah.
that'd be dope.
Yeah, well, you're just waging war on the rest of the states. we could get it back. We can
Give it back.
acquire our properties
I have
back.
I have this suspicion that there are parts of New Mexico and parts of Colorado that would prefer to be back in Texas than where they
Yes.
are.
Agreed. Well, hey everybody, let's step on over to the PCC. Let's take the Colorado good times and bring them over to the PCC.
Good times.
The good times. Welcome. Hey everybody, good to see you. We've already cracked open a cold one. Yeah. That's us passing you the bottle opener. So today actually,
Knock somebody out with that bottle.
you definitely could, man. It's heavy. I don't necessarily know if this is something that, I want to hear you guys' thoughts, but it's not necessarily the weight behind it. I saw a TikTok recently that this woman was very, like, just a really good content creator. Like, she had 1 or 2 videos that I was like, this was engaging from the moment you started to the end, and it was very well made. But one of the ones I saw that she had done was her describing how much she had dreamed her whole life to be in a good relationship, to be married, and to live in Paris. And like, those were like the core dreams that kind of like stayed with her whole life.
You mean Paris?
Paris, that's right. And
You wouldn't even listen.
that's right.
Yeah, I heard. Sorry. Took me a second.
She now has
Neanderthal.
that. She now has that, and she's questioning, why am I still depressed?
Huh.
Like I have the things that I've fought for, I've wanted to fight for my whole life.
Who's this? I'm sorry.
It's a woman on TikTok.
Gotcha.
I forget her username.
Okay.
And she's in her video, she's pointing out what's called the arrival fallacy, which I didn't know this was a real fallacy. I've heard these types of things before, of like, I have everything I want. Why am I still depressed? I've heard that before, but I copy and pasted this definition I found online. The arrival fallacy is the term given to the illusion that, in words of the expert who coined the term, once we make it, once we attain our goal or reach our destination, we will reach lasting happiness. So he's saying that's an illusion, that once we make it, once we get there, that we will actually have like ultimate happiness. And that arrival fallacy is pointing out that that's an illusion. That's not going to always be the case. And I thought she presented it in such a beautiful way. And if I find the video, I can share it on our social media stuff. But also just from the perspective of Jesus, I had a friend of mine who told me to my face that he, quote unquote, believed everything that we said about Jesus to be true. He just didn't want to follow it because his life that he's living now in rejection of Jesus is now making him happier than Christianity ever did. And he had
Christianity ever did?
I shouldn't say it that way. So he claimed to be a Christian, and then I don't know how he would say it, but left, showed that he wasn't really a Christian. And what he did in that point was he compared his life in church, is probably a better way to say it, his life in church to his life he was living then. And he said, my life now is way happier than anything I had back then. But from his perspective, he would say his life in church was him being a Christian, was him following Jesus. And so from his perspective, he was saying, man, I followed after Jesus. I went to church. I did the things. I did the deal. And that never gave me happiness, whereas this did. And what that is for those of us who actually know Jesus, we would never say that there is lasting joy or anything else outside of Christ. And so what he was doing was he had a misunderstanding of Jesus with a truth of Jesus, that there's joy in Jesus. But because he was trying to live out this misunderstanding of Jesus, he never attained that true joy in Jesus. And so he himself had this weird weight and arrival fallacy placed upon Christianity. And therefore, that's allowing him to dictate how he views the entire thing instead of realizing.
It wasn't based on Christianity.
That's what I'm saying. Like based off his skewed view of it. Yeah.
Yes.
So like his view of living out these Christian rules, doing these things, he's been told his whole life that there's joy at the end of that, which we would definitely, as true Christians, attain to that, hold to that there is joy in Christ.
Not in what you said before was joy in doing all these things.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That there
joy in Christ.
As true Christians, we would say there's joy in Christ, but from his faulty perspective, he's not actually pursuing Christ. Mm-hmm. He's just doing all these things.
Right.
And so, but what sucks is because he was in that just cloudy perspective, that misperspective of Christ, he attributed all of those things to Jesus.
Yeah.
And when he didn't get the joy that is promised in Christ, not in those things, when he didn't get that joy, he said, yeah, I'm way happier over here. I'm way happier over here at these things. And so if we are pursuing a misunderstanding of Jesus, if we're pursuing a misteaching of Jesus, if we're pursuing something that's not Christianity, that's hiding or covering itself as Christianity, of course you're going to maybe attain those goals, quote unquote, but you're not going to get the joy of Christ. You're not going to get the joy of those things. It's all work-based things. It's all false gospel. And what sucks is in that scenario, I wanted so badly, during the conversation, I fought so badly to show him the real Jesus, but he just had a broad stroke for all of it and lumped it all together. And this, I think, helped put a clearer light on it, because his hope in him doing all of the quote unquote Christian things, the good things, his goal was ultimately his own happiness. His goal wasn't to know the real Jesus. His goal was to attain happiness. And then when he found the world could give him even fleeting happiness, still in his mind, happiness, he thought,
if you got the two choices of follow a bunch of rules for no reason, or don't worry about the rules at all and enjoy
feel good. Yeah.
That's kind of what Solomon's saying in Ecclesiastes is like,
absolutely.
It's fleeting. So I think he's actually, from his perspective of not knowing Jesus, it's probably the right decision.
True.
Like,
yes.
why would you follow the rules without any relationship with Jesus when you can not have to worry about it. So
Exactly.
I understand where he's at.
Yeah.
From that, I don't actually understand where he's at, but I'm saying like
From that
it makes
perspective.
sense to what he's saying because it's a skewed version of the gospel.
Mm-hmm. And I just wish, I know that's a very small amount of people, but I've had 2 of them now in my life where one being coming from a Mormon household and one coming from this, both false gospels.
Yep.
What they're doing is they're saying everything concerning Jesus is held in those 2 false gospels. And I fought in a lot of conversations to show them like, no, the real Jesus is not that.
Right.
The real Jesus is not those things.
That's a danger, I think, in a moralistic gospel.
Oh, for sure.
It's
Yeah.
not even the gospel, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a moralistic perspective on telling people that the gospel is you doing all these things.
Mm-hmm. It's terrible.
It's BS.
So if I find that video, I can share it with you guys. I was brokenhearted for her to.
I'm
still-
not sure anybody, you said something like, I forget how you said it earlier, but I'm not sure anybody ever finds contentment or happiness. in
Oh
those
no,
things.
like
There is no contentment and happiness apart from Christ.
that's what I was gonna say is that like I'm brokenhearted for her to still be depressed, but also I pray that this woman can realize like this world will never give lasting happiness. This world, no matter how many things you attain, it's never going to give you what you have in Christ, a true purpose, a true love, a true joy, a true happiness.
I was just thinking like did you guys watch the documentary on Michael Jordan?
Yes.
Man, I wanted to. I haven't yet.
It's good, but
really good.
it's so funny to watch him sitting in his giant mansion when they're interviewing him, and you could almost sense it. Like what he's longing for is to be back on the court in the spotlight again. He's done everything that he could do. Like he's the greatest basketball player ever. And stop it if you're going to disagree with me. It's not LeBron, but like he's attained everything in his sport. Has all the money in the world.
Yeah,
has the fame of. He's more famous than probably most people. And yet there's something he still feels like he's missing. You can see it in that interview. And I keep thinking about next week when I go to Colorado, I'm going to sit on that porch. And if nuclear war breaks out next week, that was Ryan. If you're not watching, Ryan totally tipped over his shiner and almost spilled it everywhere. And you caught it. That's what was amazing is like you caught it.
I have no idea what happened.
I don't either. He's just trying to get the table to.
That's
Anyways, I'm thinking I'm going to sit on the porch in Colorado next week.
Mm-hmm.
And if nuclear war is on its way, I'm going to sit and watch the bombs come and go, huh?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like because my happiness and contentment doesn't rest in my circumstances.
Yeah,
it rests
absolutely.
in Him and Christ. So I'm able to actually enjoy things like that probably even more.
pour some out for our homie.
Who died? Steven?
Yeah,
Steven, yeah.
he's gonna come in later and be like, "Man, this place smells
Like, what is that smell? It smells like strawberries in here.
Strawberries and beer."
So I think it's a good point, Pierce.
wine.
Yeah.
17. First taste of love.
Yep.
Oh, bittersweet.
That was a good. You just wanted to leave the corner. You're like, screw this corner, man. I'm done with the arrival fallacy.
Cheers.
I hate it. So we are doing things a little bit different today. Just going to kind of jump right into it because of a question that Micah had gotten concerning self-care, and I think that what we want to show to you guys as well is that when we get those questions, we want to talk about those things. And so
Yeah, we really appreciate it when you guys go, "Hey,
yeah,
would y'all maybe talk about this on the podcast?"
And we have a list of things that we are going to talk about in the podcast, but they're not necessarily in order. So like point being, I mean, you guys, we feel like this is a little bit of a community as well.
Yeah.
And so like we want our conversations to be things that are going on in the community as well.
Yeah,
or things
we've
we're
got
thinking
15 things still on our list right now that we want to do at some point, and we're adding to them as you guys are, recommending things to us and asking things.
Yeah.
So Micah, if you want to kick us off in regards to the question you were sent,
or
the statement.
asked, yeah. So I mean, it was kind of the thought was like there's this modern day concept, which Ryan, you've read a few articles about this since we started talking about it. 5 articles now. While you read during the culture corners.
Wow! Spill your beer on me and ignore me.
So
what you said was really good.
Quite a corner, Pierce.
I really think that Garfield is a commentary on the political culture of today.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly what we're talking about.
So the concept of modern day concept
Mondays, but love lasagna.
The modern day concept of something we call self-care probably has some origins in something else. But the question that was brought up was brought up because this person was saying what he's seen is that there are people who are claiming to be followers of Jesus who are saying, I'm doing self-care. And what they tend to imply is that I'm more important than anybody else. And so he says it seems the way that he was explaining it, that he had heard people describe it in a very personal context, was that what was more important than being a servant to other people or serving other people or considering other people more important than yourself was that you are like the center.
Philippians.
Yeah, I know. Was that you? I added that in, and I'm not sure that he was saying that was in the conversation.
No, but that's
like,
great.
I think that
has to be brought into the conversation.
It, yeah. Was that they're like the center of the thought for them was that I'm the most important thing. Therefore, I need to make sure. So I think it's a jumping point for conversation, because I think that there are a lot of things to talk about within this context and thought. So
yeah.
You want to give us a basis, Ryan, from the 5 articles you read during Pierce's Culture Corner? So.
Well, I read a few before.
You're
then.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
You've read a lot more than me.
Yeah. So it appears, and this seems to be, what's really interesting is the first 3 articles that I read all agreed across the board. So let this be a little bit of a lesson to you. And I'm not an expert in this at all, and I will not pretend to be. But the 4th and 5th article, as I dug a little bit deeper, gave me more insight. The first 3 either weren't aware of, or I think if they had been aware of, they would have included it based on the flavor of the article. But anyway.
You guys want some beef jerky?
I'm all right,
beef
man.
jerky. One day I want to try that. Yeah. No, I'm good right now. One day, Micah. Gosh, quit pressuring me. Now drink your beer and shut up. So one of the things that was really interesting is that self-care, that idea was used prior to and during and even at the close of the Civil War to be in favor of slavery.
What?
Yep. And the argument from people who were slave owners was Black people aren't people and can't take care of themselves, so we have to own them as property. And so that was where it started.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Yep. And the same with women. We're not going to give women the right to vote because they can't take care of themselves, so they have no say. And so that's where this idea of self-care started, at least in the States. In the 50s and the 60s, with the civil rights movement, they kind of thumbed their nose at that attitude that had been going on for 90 years and said, screw you guys, we can take care of ourselves. And because you won't, we will. And so there were some civil rights activists and movements, and all of the articles said that the Black Panthers were instrumental in this, but that there were some civil rights activists who just said, you have said too long that we are not people. And so it was used by women's groups and it was used by African-American groups to say, no, screw you guys. If you say we're not people, we'll take care of ourselves. And at this point in the 60s, where there was a dearth of medical provision for Black mothers and education for Black students, the Black activists started rallying together to say, we're going to fix this problem. And if you won't do it, we will. And then there was another big shift in the 80s. And in the 80s, it was kale and yoga and sunlight. And it got softened.
Yeah, because that was the New Age movement.
Yes. And it got softened to be this like, do what you enjoy doing. Do what makes you feel good. And then the next huge shift for it, there were shifts all along, but the next huge shift for it was after 9/11. And the incredible stress and the trauma that put on that generation of people who were like, man, what's going on in our world? I don't know how to cope with this. A lot of counselors and a lot of therapists started using the idea of self-care. Like, look, what is going to be restful for you? What are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing to take care of your peace of mind? And then go fast forward from that through the stress of the 2016 election, the 2020 election, but also COVID. And since that, you have a lot of people, you have so many people now who are saying, I feel anxious all the time. I feel stressed all the time. I feel uncertain in this world all the time. And so the self-care movement now has become this thing of, what are you doing to manage your anxiety? What are you doing to be able to continue to function in the things that you have to function in? You still have a job, or you still have bills to pay, or whatever. And what's really interesting is in 3 of the 5 articles that I read, they all kind of at the end are pissed at the I mean, it's capitalism, it's business, but they're all kind of pissed at the businesses who are going, yes, you need to do self-care. Here's our spa treatment. Hey, here's our new bottle of wine. And they're like, man, you're making light of my emotional trauma, saying that this will fix it. And so it started as self-care started as a way to be oppressive. It shifted to a way of screw you, like, we're going to take care of ourselves since you won't. In the middle there, in the 40s and 50s, in the 1940s and 50s, it was also used for mentally ill patients that they can't care for themselves, so we have to do it for them. And then it shifted into health and fitness in the 70s and 80s. Like, you need to take care of your body because otherwise you're going to get sick and you're going to die.
So originally when someone said self-care, it wasn't the person taking care of themselves, it was someone else taking care of them?
Yes.
Because they were incapable of taking care of themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So originally it was they can't take care of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So they called that self-care.
Yep. And so we have to do it. We have to manage it for them. And then it was more benevolent. These people are sick. They're mentally ill. They can't care for themselves. They need self-care. And then it was kind of in retaliation, I think rightly so, against like a government that was saying, you don't deserve it. And they're like, well, screw you. We're going to take care of ourselves. And then it became health and wellness and fitness, and then dealing with anxiety.
Interesting.
So that's kind of
the gamut from the 1860s to now. So now it sounds like this is how I normally hear it. When someone says
one more thing, sorry.
Yeah.
Every article that I read agreed that at its heart, self-care is a political activism.
That was I told you guys before, that was my suspicion, was that it was actually a sneaky way of implementing some kind of like political idea through a phrase that people can define however they want to define it. That was my thought. So I'm interested to do more research on it. Hey, if you guys listening know about this, we would love to hear.
Yeah, none of us are saying we know about it.
Josh Scholes, we would love for you to research the whole thing so we don't have to. So you can tell us all the answers later.
This is what we know about it. This is all we know about it.
So how I typically hear people talk about it now, which sounds right, is like kind of the new agey kind of thought, is like self-care is making sure that I make myself number one, that like my mental state is the most important thing.
And what you just said, I think, is super key. That's how we hear about, how we are hearing about it the most.
Is that people are saying I'm the most important thing. Which actually goes along with, I feel like the postmodern mindset that probably began with Gen X, became like the mantra of millennials, and now has been like adopted by Gen Z. Which is why you see people say, this is my truth. It's my truth. You can't say, it's funny. Like they'll say things like, this is my truth. You can't say this is not my truth, which is funny because that statement in and of itself is stupid.
Truth. Yeah.
This is my truth. You can't tell me it's not my truth. You can't tell me it's
but
not
my truth.
You
is
just
I can
made
tell
a
you.
statement of truth about my, anyways, it's ridiculous. So, but that postmodern mindset that there's like, my truth is my truth is still centered in me. Like I'm the most important thing, which is the same idea. Sounds like how people use it now is like self-care is like, I'm the most important thing. Here's what's interesting to me. I think there's some importance in making sure that you are or attempting to be healthy to some degree. So like if you're I keep reading all this stuff. This is a little bit of a diversion from self-care, but I guess not. But I keep reading all this stuff now about gut health.
Oh yeah.
Like how much gut health is like the
impacts
question,
your whole body.
The question now is like, why are there so many people that are depressed now and anxious? And there's some people who make a case that it's because of circumstantial things that are going on. But there is a group of people who are making a case that it's because we've been eating crap for so many years.
Yeah.
And so like maybe our gut health really does have to do with our emotional mental state.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it's like, I think that it's important to I have a bunch of friends who are like super health nerds. I'll call them that to their face. But like for them, the people I know aren't the people who are like, they'll see me drinking Dr. Pepper and be like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
They'll kind of make fun of me for it. But point being what they acknowledge is that when you eat well, your body functions better. And I don't think there's any negating that.
No.
And so it's funny because I feel like there's
exercise, sunshine. There's some basic things.
Absolutely. I mean, probably the best thing we could do to fight COVID was to go outside and be in the sun. And they were like, get in your house, which makes me think like this was all an agenda. Anyways, I'm not saying there wasn't COVID. Obviously, I had COVID bad. My dad almost died with COVID, but not of COVID. I think that the tendency is
I love
like
that little nuance.
The tendency is that if we understand potentially that the idea of self-care was like a political push, the tendency would be like to say anything that has to do with like being healthy is wrong. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I think the pendulum needs to not swing like that. We need to understand potentially where its origins are and maybe use different terms. So like if someone's like, you know what, I want to start being healthy, potentially use a different term than self-care.
Yeah.
Just use something like, I want to start taking care of myself. And you might call that a nuance, but it's not the same phrase.
Well, language has intent. Language has meaning. And so, I mean, I think if we're ignorant of the roots of it, and I think that's fine, you know, but I think that when we become educated on something, we're then kind of accountable to that, you know? And so I think there are a lot of things that don't matter in language. And I think though that language is the only way to really exchange ideas and concepts. It is written or spoken or signed, or language is how we communicate ideas and concepts. And up until we were preparing for this podcast, I would have never guessed the Civil War era use of self-care. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that.
No.
And so
I would have assumed the 70s and 80s thing.
Sure,
but I
yeah,
wouldn't
of
have assumed the
course.
Civil War thing.
No, and so that's interesting, and it should now shape how I talk about that. Because I have that thing as a believer. If our view of self-care, Micah, to what you were saying a moment ago, is that I take priority. Okay, the example that people use a lot of times is the oxygen mask in the airplane. And they say the instruction there is to put it on yourself first so that you can put it on other people. And so people say you need to take care of yourself, otherwise you can't take care of other people.
That's a dumb example.
But it's one that's used pretty commonly.
Have they ever talked to like safety people on airplanes?
I guess not.
Because you should talk to, in fact, I think Nate explained it to me one time. My buddy Nate in Minnesota, he was a pilot. Like, I think he explained to me like the idea of that.
Yeah.
Because I think he said you have like, I forget, it's something ridiculous, like seconds.
Yeah.
If the oxygen mask comes down, you have seconds before you pass out.
Yeah.
And so it's I mean, it makes sense in how they're trying to use it. Like, if you don't put it on, if you try to put it on someone else first,
you're dead.
You're probably gonna die. Yeah. But if you put it on you, then you actually, because that person passes out, but it's not dead yet.
Yeah.
So if you put it on, you can start helping other people. But that's not self-care. That's actually care for others.
Yeah.
The intent is to care for others, not self.
I am putting that on so that I can serve you.
Side note, he told me something else in this last trip to Minnesota. Interesting. Did you know that the sole job of a flight attendant is safety for getting off a plane in case of emergency?
Really?
Their main role is not to serve you on the plane, although that's the majority of the things they do, but their intentional purpose.
Aren't you glad that that's the majority of the things they do? Like, they're so adept at getting you off the plane because it crashes every time. Like one in every 3 planes crashes, and they're like, I'm really good at this.
He was saying they
start having like scars through their eyes and patches, you know, and they got the cigarette and hanging off their lip, and they're like,
you guys ready to fly today?
You're like,
it's a 30-year-old blonde woman weighing 120 pounds. You guys ready to fly? Tell you what, last week I was able to save 70% of my passengers.
I think if she talked like that, I would believe her. And I might be like, wait a minute, what are you? Are you sure you're
Yeah, that makes sense though.
But I think it's a dumb perspective, because to use that as an example, because the idea of that is for the collective group, not for the individual.
Yes.
Because if it was, they would put the mask on and be like, screw everybody else and make sure number one's taken care of.
Yeah.
If as a Christian your attitude is this is all about me, I think that is in direct contradiction to the scripture. And Micah, you alluded to it earlier, but Philippians chapter 2, beginning in verse 3, do nothing from selfishness, selfish ambition or vain conceit, but with humility consider others more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interest, but also for the interest of others. Have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus, who made himself nothing and became a servant even to the point of death. So that text right there, these 5 verses, I think fly in the face of this ideology that you matter more.
Yep.
And so if you are a Christian who goes self-care, and out of the 5 or 6 definitions we gave for self-care a moment ago, if you're in the place where you're like, self-care for me is about I matter more, I as an individual matter more, then that is contrary to Christ. That is contrary to what
and that's actually, I think, where the culture is pushing.
I do
now.
too.
I think that's where, like, even with the I'm going to say modern, because the idea of modern day abortion is not, I think I said this in the Roe versus Wade episode, is not the classical liberal perspective.
Right.
I'm not a classical liberal, but I know that classical liberal perspective was not that you can just kill babies up till even like right out of the womb. That's a modern day, like in the last, I don't know,
few years
kind of perspective. So, but the majority justification they give is protection of the mother, my body, my choice, protection of the mental and emotional health of the mother. That's a move towards this of saying that number 1 is most important.
Yeah, that I matter more.
And I always want to ask them, like, who does number 2 work for?
Yeah.
I've seen an argument. I don't know if I'd call it an argument. I've seen this posted around that the gospel started with God loving me, so I need to learn how to love me.
Oof.
Because that's what God did first.
That's like Gay Bolt saying, I'm finally okay with my gayness because I realized that God's okay with it too. It's like, instead of just saying, I would actually be more comfortable if he just said, look, I'm done with all this Jesus stuff. I would rather just dive into homosexuality. So I don't feel like I can be consistent in that. So I'm just going to dive into it. But no, instead he tried to change who God is to justify. That's an interesting thought, because it's, why do you feel the need to do that?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And I also don't understand in the same conversation with like the idea of saying I'm the most important thing. Why do you feel the need to do that? I think my guess is it's an ingrained sinful thing. I think this is what you can track it back to probably Genesis 3.
Yeah.
You know, with Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Is my guess. I mean,
I think at the core of it, back to Adam and Eve, is self is the standard. And when self is the standard rather than God being the standard, you're going, you know what? I have other friends who are in these same kinds of scenarios that I am, and I want them to, like, it is justifying self, it is caring for self, it is exalting self. And when self is the standard, God can't be.
That's true. Yeah.
And so look, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my goodness, I took a nap yesterday because I was really tired. Am I in sin? Like, no, like Micah is not a nap taker, but Micah had recently done 3 camps in a row. And
a disc golf chapel trip.
Yeah. And
delayed flights.
And we had staff meeting one day, and then later that night we saw you, and you're like, dude, I went home and I passed out. I was so tired. I took a nap and I was just done. And you needed that. Like, you needed that.
Yeah, my body was like, I was like, I'm just going to chill for a bit, because I think I had a couple hours after staff meeting before I needed to get my stuff together to come up to church to get ready for kids camp. And I laid on the bed. I was just watching some disc golf YouTube, and I was like,
that did it right there.
that was the mistake. But I was like, I should set an alarm because I feel really tired. And then next thing I know, my alarm hadn't even gone off yet. Next thing I know, I'm waking up to my family coming back from New Mexico. Like, they're coming in the door, and I'm jumping up because I'm excited to see them. But like, I slept so hard, it felt like a moment.
Yeah.
When I closed my eyes until that happened.
And so if that's you, like, I mean, I enjoy going for a run. And I'll find that if I've had a stressful day, hitting my heavy bag is really cathartic for me. It helps me to get my blood going, and it energizes me a little bit, allows me to kind of deal with some frustration if I need to deal with frustration or whatever. But we're going for a long run until my legs are just too tired to go anymore. Like, those are some things that I'll do. I think you two guys are included in this exception, because I don't ever feel tired after I've hung out with you guys. I was just with my family in June. We were gone for 2 weeks. And we were together all the time. We were in small hotels and small cabins and whatever. And one of the things that I have realized about myself over the last few years is if I'm around people constantly for like a day, like just a day, like 12, 15 hours, I feel like antsy and anxious at night. And I need a couple of hours just by myself for my brain to be quiet. Unless it's people like you guys that I've known for a decade or more, or my family that I've known for a decade or more, that I'm just completely at ease with. And if you're like, man, I can't be around people for a long time. Like I'm one of these people, and some of you will resonate with this. I'm one of these people that when I make plans with people, I almost immediately regret it. and I'm like, I don't want to leave the house today. And so when people text me and they're like, hey, we're canceling tonight, I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry to hear that. But inside I'm like, yay, I can stay home, you know? I like being in my space. And so for some of you who are like, man, that's just kind of who I am too. That's not what we're talking about here. No. That's partly your personality. But I still have as my priority and as my aim the gospel and Jesus, and that people would know Jesus. And that has to be I think you start to ask the question with that in mind. It's so the kickback to the self-care idea isn't to say I'm not going to do anything for my own health. Right. The kickback is to say I'm not the most important thing. Exactly.
So I'll tell you this. I I lean towards the reality that the healthier you are, the easier it is to do life. And probably
physically healthier.
Physically healthier you are, mentally healthy.
Mentally too, yeah, sure.
The healthier you are, the easier it is to do life, and which means there's going to be an ease to whatever God is drawing you towards in life, proclaiming the gospel in whatever venue you're in. That's going to be easier than if you are unhealthy and anxious and stressed.
Yes.
So like if my mindset is I want to run, or I want to skip sitting on the couch at night with a bag of potato chips, or like I often do, like 2 scoops of ice cream and a waffle cone. Like if I want to avoid that stuff for the sake of being healthier so that I can do life better for the glory of God.
Do you just go get the waffle cone somewhere? Do you buy them, or do you make them? Or?
Yeah. So I got sick of paying for Baskin-Robbins because I love Baskin-Robbins. I got sick of paying for it all the time. And one day I saw the waffle cones in the grocery store. So I just bought a box of waffle cones and then
How have I never seen waffle cones at the grocery store?
It's
That's
really
awesome.
Oh
yeah, it's a terrible
we
thing.
haven't grown up.
It's a terrible thing.
I clearly don't look for them.
Yeah, well, they're like right by the ice cream.
Eat it all the time.
Yeah.
Like I sit down on the couch and I'm like, oh, there's a waffle cone.
There's waffle cones
like,
right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not as good as
As
the fresh made
like
ones.
when you walk in and you smell the waffle cones.
Now I'll say this. I've watched how they make waffle cones. I mean, I'm not opposed to like
getting the little
figuring
thing,
out my own batter and making my own waffle cone. That might be the next step.
You remember waffle scoops?
waffle cone chips that we talked about?
Yeah, we're like, you know, people eat chips and salsa.
Yeah.
You make waffle chips,
You
or
can scoop
waffle
ice
scoops,
cream.
and you scoop the ice cream out, chips and salsa, but dessert.
Heck yes.
Yeah, it already existed, so we kind of stopped it. But we can make it popular.
We could make it
Yeah,
popular.
we could.
Simpler.
We could do some simpler.
Simpler scoops.
It's probably not anything like, I mean, anybody could probably make waffle chips. So you just start your own brand and just make the best.
That's true.
Exactly.
We gotta
Just
do
do the
special
better
recipe.
version of it.
Absolutely.
So all that to say, all I'm saying is like, I don't think that's what the self-care idea is. I think that is saying, I'm not saying by any means, if you're like unhealthy, you can't live life for the glory of God. What I'm saying is, I feel like my opinion is I lean towards the fact that it's easier. The healthier you are, the easier it is to do life in Christ. And I mean that physically and emotionally and mentally. So like someone who is overly depressed and anxious all the time, it's going to be hard for you to have clarity on like reaching the world with the gospel, or, you know, whatever it is that God has gifted you with, that you're, you know, if you feel like God's drawing you to in life. So I feel like that's a different conversation than self-care, because that's not saying I'm the most important thing. That's saying my goal is to do this life the best I can for the glory of God. Yeah. And obviously we can't set standards with that.
Yeah.
Because health looks different for different people. You know what I mean? Like I know some of the, someone related to Cammie had a heart attack in her late 30s because she was training for a marathon.
Oh, wow.
Perfectly healthy, and just sometimes you just don't. So my point is like, you can't control it, but I think it's more of a heart issue. Like I want to be the best person I can in this life for the glory of God.
Sure.
I've probably said this before. One of my favorite stories about Charles Spurgeon is when D.L. Moody goes to England to preach and wants to meet Spurgeon. So he goes to Spurgeon's house, and this is like, I think this is like late 1800s, early 1900s, somewhere in there, turn of the century then.
I think 1800s. I think Spurgeon died in the 1800s.
Okay, so 1800s. And Moody's coming from an era where, like, in the U.S., it's like morally wrong for Christians to like drink and smoke and that kind of stuff. And so Moody shows up at Spurgeon's house. They like set up a time for him to go visit, and Spurgeon opens the door smoking a cigar, pipe or something. And D.L. Moody goes, "I cannot believe a man of God would be smoking." And Spurgeon looks Moody up and down and goes, "I cannot believe a man of God would be so fat." What's funny is I think Spurgeon was fat too.
He was.
So, but to Spurgeon's point, like, stop putting standards on me that you can't uphold consistently on the other side.
Yeah.
So here's a guy, Spurgeon, who is not healthy according to our modern standards, but still living his life for the glory of God. So that's my point. Is like, I think it's a hard issue. Like, if you feel like you are in a bad place mentally, emotionally, physically, and it's something you can remedy, get help, fix it, like, or start fixing it, not so that you can be a better person, but so that you can be someone who better reflects the glory of God in your life. Like, don't make it about you, make it about the glory of God. When have we ever heard someone talk about like a health and fitness program from the perspective of like, so that you can be someone who lives your life better for the glory of God, instead of just like, what are those books that Joel Osteen wrote? Like,
best
life
life
now,
best life
better
now,
you. If it's my best life now, how can it be a better you after that? How can it be better than the best? You freaking idiot.
That's funny. And then his next one is, it's pretty good. Your best.
So I think, but all that to say, like, I think we're going to continue to find out more things about self-care now. That other people are going to start giving us info about it. But I think the kickback shouldn't be like, well, this is potentially a stupid idea. Let's not do anything for health at all.
Right.
The kickback should be like, this is the goal isn't for us to be number one. The goal is for us to live our lives for the glory of God.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, to your point, Micah, about like mental health and physical health, so that you can best like do those things for God. Like, just from a very practical standpoint, if your physical health prevents you from, I don't know, like, I mean, my dad had diabetes. My dad drank. My dad probably did drugs.
And had diabetes because he did all that stuff?
Probably. He was 6 foot flat. And he got to where he weighed like 340 at the end of his life. And his feet were so swollen from the diabetes and stuff, he could barely feel his toes and different things. And that dude could barely walk. And had he given his life to Christ in that moment, it just would have been, practically speaking, more difficult for him to be out and around people, and just from a practical standpoint, like, and I went through 10 years of really severe depression from 15 to 25, and have recently, 3-4 months ago, just kind of been like, okay, there are still some things there I need to address. And instead of going, well, I dealt with most of that, 20 years ago, I'm going, no, I want my mind to be more redeemed. I want to think more on Christ. I want to be a better resource for people who need to know Christ, and I want to be able to do this
and
well.
Have gone through the stuff you went through.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want anxiety to cripple me. I mean, for 10 years in my life, anxiety was so overwhelming to me, I could barely face the day. And I haven't felt that way in decades. And like, but it isn't, it's because of being grounded in Jesus.
Yep.
It's not because self-care.
Well, and I think I think your story is actually a great example of this. When you were technically diagnosed, right? The process you went through was you began to do a reset where you said, I'm holding on to Jesus, and everything else I'm scrapping, and I'm starting over. I'm reading the scripture with the filter of no filters. I just want to know Jesus. And that was, whether you realize it or not, that was actually you starting the process of becoming healthy in your mind, because it's shifting your perspective of identity from you or someone else to where your identity mentally, you're recognizing that your identity rests in Jesus, and that's where the strength now comes from. Not that you got stronger in your mind, but
Right.
that your identity shifted from you or somebody
I
else
believe it.
to Jesus,
Yeah,
and it
believe
became
who Christ
core.
is. Yeah.
And I think that's what we mean is, my feeling is, my guess is that there are Christians across the world who have all these internal struggles that they don't tell people about because they feel like it makes them seem weak.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And my hope is that if you're someone listening that you feel that way, my hope is that you will begin to recognize that the goal of you getting out of this situation is not so that you can be healthy. The goal of you getting out of this situation is so that you can be someone
Right.
who best represents Jesus.
Right.
And the result of that is that you are going to be
Healthy.
more healthy, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not, the goal is not the health. The health is the byproduct of
Right.
of the process of you
100%.
saying, I want my life to represent Jesus more. I think we would all agree as parents, you're probably even there, Pierce, now that you're a real father.
True.
Like the better we are, like the healthier we are mentally, emotionally, physically, probably the better we do as parents with our
Yeah.
kids. I mean, like, how many stories have we heard from parents saying, like, I feel bad because when I get home from work, I'm just so exhausted and my kids just want time with me. I just want to rest. And
Yeah.
maybe you feel exhausted because you're freaking out of shape or mentally in a
Mentally
bad
broken,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like instead of saying, well, it's just these circumstances, have you ever considered like maybe your identity is trying to rest in something else, or maybe you've
You need
eaten
some
too many,
healing. Yeah.
or you've eaten too many
Physically or-
waffle cones with
Yeah.
ice cream that you can't physically keep up with your kids. I mean, like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's a right or wrong thing. I'm just saying like there is some aspect of what I'm trying to do is say that the idea of modern day new agey self-care, I think, is bogus.
Yes.
Because number one, you're
It
number
has
one.
me as core.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think that can't mean that we say we should not consider our health at all.
Yeah.
Right. Agreed.
That's all I'm saying.
And that bleeds into a lot of how we talk about like wisdom and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
we're not setting any sort of standard for your salvation or how you stand before the Lord, but rather in this life we can be wise. And
Yeah.
does it look like 1,000 waffle cones, or does it look like not dying of a heart attack because of 1,000 waffle cones? It probably looks like just making wise choices in the situation. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy a waffle cone. It doesn't
Right.
mean you don't enjoy these things, but
I never
being-
will again.
That's right. But just being wise in the midst of your life. And so
Yeah.
to better take care of your kids, ultimately to better represent the gospel. May that be in your home, may it be at work, may it be in your community, whatever, at school, whatever that looks like, implementing that wisdom and saying, okay, I would be more equipped to represent the gospel, to honor Jesus in this situation if I wasn't allowing XYZ to rule my life,
Yeah.
to dictate, for allowing my job to dictate my exhaustion level,
Yep.
allowing my past to dictate how I'm mentally engaging with this individual right now, to allow my eating habits to mean that I can't keep up with
Yeah.
my kids. I can't even just stay there with them. So
Mhm.
I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about yesterday, of just like the heart of, or not yesterday, with the last week, with the heart of discipline, like with the heart of discipline and training, and from God's perspective to better equip us for the gospel, to be trained up in righteousness and holiness and in those things, looking at it from that lens as well, ultimately through the lens of the gospel, that we can, to use your language, not implement self-care, but to take care of ourselves for the sake of the gospel.
Yeah.
And it's completely possible. So don't negate good things. I don't know how you said it earlier, but like, don't negate healthy habits. May they be physically, emotionally.
Yeah. And I don't want to
spiritually,
make a
whatever that looks
standard.
like.
I hope people don't make a standard either. Like, if you're not healthy, you're not godly. That's not,
Mhm.
Right.
that's not the goal. I think we're just saying, like, and that would be like saying, like, to someone, like, you're not really a good Christian unless you've read the Bible 50 times in your life.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Is there a benefit of reading the Bible that many times? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's you're better off in terms of your understanding of who God is, but it doesn't mean that you are a better person.
Right.
Our righteousness is determined by who we are in Christ.
Absolutely.
So I think it's the same idea. Like, are you a worse Christian because you're not in a healthy state mentally, emotionally, physically? No.
No.
Could you be someone who better represents the gospel because you're capable of
Mhm.
living this life for the glory of God unhindered by you?
Yeah.
I think yes. You know, so it's not to say like every Christian, their standard of godliness or holiness is their physical, emotional, and mental health, but I think you do a better job.
It makes
Yeah.
a difference, though. It does.
It does.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, when when I am stressed, when I allow old thoughts to creep back into my head, I don't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't sleep, then the next day, everything
tired.
feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because I'm physically tired.
Mhm.
Like, and when the difference is, okay, my confidence actually truly rests in Jesus,
Mhm.
it changes how long those things rest on me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm able to move through those things a lot more quickly and go, you know what? This cannot shape my day. Okay, it
Mhm.
shaped the last hour, but it can't shape my day because I need to remind myself who Christ is, and it does. It makes a difference. Those
Yeah.
things impact the day to day.
It does. It does. I remember hearing this a few years ago at a pastor's conference. It's probably been like more than 10 years ago, but someone actually started a conference talking about how important it is for pastors to like be healthier. And I think they were just talking physically,
Mhm.
and they were alluding to the reality that there's this constant stress. And then if you're not giving yourself time, and I think they were acknowledging that there is something physically beneficial to a simple walk or a workout or a run, those kind of things that is important and necessary for us to be good at what we do. I mean, ministry you're never off.
Right.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you never know, the conversation never stops.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're tired and exhausted nonstop as a pastor because you're not taking time,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mhm.
I think one of the greatest things that pastors ever get encouraged to do is take a day off. Like you think
Mhm.
about a normal, like if you're a pastor at like a corporate kind of church, you have office hours, you typically Monday through Friday, or sometimes Monday through Thursday if they give you Friday off. But then
Mhm.
you have like weekend stuff. You're working
Funerals, weddings,
yeah, all day
yeah.
Saturday, sometimes all day Sunday, and then sometimes Saturday has stuff. And if you don't have a dedicated time where you tell your church, unless there's an emergency, this time I am unavailable,
Mhm.
and you protect that time, then you will never have that time, and you will
Yeah,
probably
you
just
won't.
wear yourself down. So this is
Yeah.
the same. This is the same idea, and I think you can do that. And you don't have to be just a pastor for that. I think this is important in life in general, is
Mhm.
to recognize, like you said, Ryan, your tendency is you have to have time away from people.
Yeah.
You recognize that, and so it's an important thing for you to make sure you take that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's a fantastic recognition of our tendencies and our needs, which is not self-care in the term of how the term is usually used. This is simply what you said, Pierce, taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
with the goal of saying, I want to glorify God the best I can in my life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It just makes me want to go run and then eat a waffle cone.
That's right. Yeah, do both.
Run so that you can eat.
There
the
you
waffle.
go. That's right. That's right. You guys have anything else to add to that? I think that was the simpler view right there. Yeah.
I really just want to figure out that batter now and go home and buy one of those waffle cone
Yeah.
things where you like
Makes
roll
the
it.
thin waffle. Yeah.
Speaking of yummy,
Steven. We're at the Garden Audio. Steven's here. We're having a good time.
Now he's the what's the hot Cheeto?
He's the hot Cheeto. Yeah.
We should do a hot Cheeto waffle cone batter just for Steven.
Yeah. With vanilla ice cream
Have
inside.
y'all seen that ice cream they make that's like made from real hot peppers?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I saw a show on it where they like have different levels. Like you have to sign a form to eat some of this
Golly.
stuff because they're making it out of these peppers that they can't even touch with their hands, and they're making it into ice cream. And people are eating the ice cream, and they said it's this weird sensation because it's cold and then it's just like fiery hot. So we'll make the hot Cheeto waffle cone batter, and then we'll put one of those hot ice
There you
creams in
go.
there just for Steve.
Perfect. It's the hot Cheeto.
Hot Cheeto.
That's right. Well, hey, go
Getting
follow.
hotter every day.
Hotter every day. Go follow at the Garden Audio. See that level of hotness over there. Go check out Steven. It's a good time.
Smells good, too.
Show him some love. While you're over there, we're at Simpler Pod. You're watching, you're listening. Hit the subscribe, hit follow. You can leave reviews. I see on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for sure. I'm not sure how Google. I would assume you could on Google Podcasts, but leave a review.
Do people use Androids? I don't know.
Yeah, some people. Josh Scholes is out there. That's our one, our one Android listener. Yeah, check us out. Leave reviews. We love you guys. We're thankful that we can be a part of this, and we hope that your July can wrap up nicely. Take care of yourselves out there. As always, keep Christ as core. What could be simpler than that? Bye.
Peace.